So, when we talk about nephrotic syndrome, it's not a disease, it's a clinical complex and it is characterized by a number of renal and extrarenal features, and most of which are proteinuria. Usually, it is 3 to 3.5 gram in one day, but when it comes to children, you have to put it as 40 milligram per meter square per hour because their body size vary depending on the age. There can be hypoalbuminemia, edema, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, lipiduria, and hypocoagulability. Main features are proteinuria, hypoalbuminemia, edema, and hyperlipidemia. It can be classified as primary, where the disease is specific to the kidneys, and secondary, where the systemic general illness has a renal manifestation. The primary causes are minimal change nephropathy, which is very common, 70 to 90% in children and 10 to 15% in adults. Focal glomerulosclerosis, membranous nephropathy, mesangial proliferative glomerulonephritis, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Secondary causes can be diabetes, lupus erythematosus, amyloidosis, paraproteinemias, viral infections like hepatitis B, C, and HIV, and preeclampsia. Nephrotic syndrome is 15 times more common in children, and most cases in children are due to minimal change disease. In adult, the most common form is membranous glomerulonephritis, followed by focal segmental glomerulonephritis. Diabetes nephropathy is emerging as a major cause as we have more number of diabetics. Here you can see the basic structure of a nephron. You can see the glomerulus, then you can see the proximal convoluted tubule, you can see the distal convoluted tubule, and there is a collecting system. And each one has their own specific function we can see over here. So this is the basic structure of glomerulus, and there are membranes and there is space. We can see it here. So in healthy individuals, less than 0.1% of albumin may traverse through the glomerular filtration barrier. Glomerular capillaries are lined with fenestrated endothelium that sits on the basement membrane. You can see GBM and endothelium, which in turn is covered by again the epithelium or the podocytes, which envelops the capillaries with cellular extension, and these extensions are called food processes. In between the food process are the filtration slits, and these three structures form the glomerular filtration barrier. What is the pathophysiology? There is selective proteinuria. What does this mean? That low molecular weight protein like albumin and transferrin are excreted predominantly, while high molecular weight like IgG, IgM, and alpha 2 macroglobulin that are saved. So they are not excreted that much, and this is called selective proteinuria. You have to know about it. Hypoalbuminemia, why does it occur? It is due to both proteinuria and due to decrease in renal catabolism. So in fact, hepatic albumin synthesis is increased. See, you can see the chart over here. There is proteinuria, and this reduces the albumin. Then there is reduced oncotic pressure, which leads to edema, and the blood volume is reduced because there is loss in the other spaces, and that activates your renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system and ADH. And liver increases production of albumin and lipoprotein carrier of triglyceride and cholesterol. Then there are some metabolic consequences of nephrotic syndrome, and these are infection, hyperlipidemia and atherosclerosis, hypocalcemia and bone abnormalities, hypercoagulability and hypovolemia. We will see each one of it. So how do you justify infection in a case of nephrotic syndrome? Usually there is loss of immunoglobulin in the kidney, so your immunity is lost. Edema fluid is very good culture medium. There is another thing like protein deficiency, decreased bactericidal activity of the leukocytes. Immunosuppressive therapy, which we usually give, steroids. Urinary loss of complement factor. This is usually helping in opsonization of the bacteria and further killing of the bacteria. And if this factor is lost, the opsonization is lost. So mostly capsulated organisms cannot be fought with. Hyperlipidemia, because hepatic lipoprotein synthesis is triggered by reduced oncotic pressure, and so defective lipid catabolism has an important role, and which cholesterols, LDL and cholesterol, are increased in majority of patients, whereas VLDL and triglyceride tend to rise in patients with severe disease. It also increases progression of renal disease. Cause of hypercoagulability, it is multifactorial. Mostly loss of urinary antithrombin 3 and altered level and activity of protein C and S. Even hyperfibrinogenemia due to increased hepatic synthesis. Impaired fibrinolysis due to decreased plasminogen. Increased platelet aggregability. Relative immobility, hemoconcentration from hypovolemia leads to hyperlipidemia. Alteration in endothelial function. Hypocalcemia. It is common in nephrotic syndrome, but rather than being a true hypocalcemia, it is usually because of low serum albumin. However, there are reports of low bone density and abnormal bone histology in nephrotic syndrome, and this can be again due to urinary loss of vitamin D binding proteins, and this leads to hypovitaminosis D, and as a result reduced intestinal calcium absorption. Hypovolemia occurs when hypoalbuminemia decreases the plasma oncotic pressure, and this results in loss of plasma water into the interstitium and causing a decrease in circulating blood volume. So it is usually observed only when the patient's serum albumin is less than 1.5, and hypotension is a late feature. Thyroid binding globulin and thyroxine, these are lost, and that's why may lead to hypothyroidism. Again, vitamin D binding protein can lead to osteomalacia in adults but rare. Total calcium is low due to low albumin level. Transferrin and erythropoietin, these are lost, and this can lead to microcytic hypochromic anemia. And acute renal failure is a rare phenomenon in nephrotic syndrome. So what are the signs and symptoms of nephrotic syndrome? It usually includes anorexia, malaise. You can see specifically puffy eyelids. That is because the eyelid skin is thin. So in the morning you will see puffy eyelids. There is retinal shin. There is abdominal pain, that may be because of ascites. There is wasting of muscles and edema. And edema most often is mobile. So it is detected in the eyelid in the morning and in the ankle after ambulation. So focal edema can be the reason for seeking help mostly. And there can be later on the complaint of difficulty in breathing, that is because of pleural effusion or laryngeal edema. There can be substernal chest pain, pericardial effusion, there can be scrotal swelling, there can be swollen knees, there can be swollen abdomen, abdominal pain from edema of the mesentery. Usually you can see frothy urine as an early sign of nephrotic syndrome. Initially it is 2 gram per meter square per day, and you can see this spot protein create ratio. This is very important and diagnostic. It is more than 2. Sometimes orthostatic hypotension and even shock can occur in children. Adults may have hypo, normo and hypertensive based on what kind of pathology is there in the kidney. There can be oliguria and even acute renal failure. There can be myopathy, there can be total calcium decreased, and that can lead to again tetany. There can be spontaneous peritonitis, this is very important, and opportunistic infections. There can be coagulation disorders with decreased fibrinolytic activity. There can be hypertension with cardiac and cerebral complications, and there can be hypovolemia and serious thrombotic risk like renal vein thrombosis. And there can be other nutritional deficiency just like you see in protein malnutrition. You have to differentiate it from heart failure, where edema doesn't occur usually on the leads, it usually occurs on the limbs. You have to differentiate it from cirrhosis, where liver doesn't produce albumin and liver function is altered, and also glomerulonephritis. What workup you will do for the same? You will first see urine analysis. So you have to rule out urinary infection, one. Then you have to quantify the protein in the urine. So how much protein is lost in 24 hours. You also have to see serum albumin level, spot protein create ratio, which we already discussed. You have to see serological study for any infection and immune abnormalities. You have to see ultrasonography, and later on biopsy might be needed. In India, usually we rule out tuberculosis before starting steroids in nephrotic syndrome. So usually we do MT in these children to rule out any latent tuberculous infections, so that giving steroids might not flare up the infection. So what is this management of nephrotic syndrome? And there is specific management. In minimal change nephropathy, you give steroids. When you know that this is lupus nephritis, you give cyclophosphamide and steroids. Then there are certain things like secondary amyloidosis, where you need anti-inflammatory treatment. But mostly we in pediatric group always give steroids. As looking towards diet and activity, you have to specifically see that they are getting enough energy and adequate protein, because their protein is being lost. So you have to give proper protein diet. Also, you have to avoid salt because fluid overload is there. You have to manage hyperlipidemia, and because diet cannot contain lot of unhealthy fats. So these patients need not to have bed rest. Why? Because you have to tell them to do the ongoing routine activities, because you want to reduce the blood clots. So when it comes to use of diuretics, we very much like to think that why not give diuretics, but then there is again risk of thrombosis, so it should be used very judiciously. You can give anticoagulants when there is already thromboembolic complications. Hypolipidemic agents may be used, but if nephrotic syndrome cannot be controlled and there is persistent hyperlipidemia, then only you have to use. Otherwise, usually steroids work. AC inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blockers, these are used to reduce the blood pressure whenever required. And long-term monitoring is very important of these patients. You have to immunize them properly, specifically with capsulated organisms, varicella. Everything in the immunization has to be done, but these are the specific ones. Treatment of relapses of steroid responsive nephrotic syndrome is very important. So again, if they are relapsing, you have to think what you do now. Monitoring of steroid toxicity. This is very important features. You have to monitor the blood pressure, you have to monitor the weight, you have to monitor the sugar, and you have to look for the other side effects of steroids whenever you are giving steroid therapy. Monitoring of diuretic and angiotensin antagonist regimen. So specifically, these are the medications we use. Some may ask you what is steroid response. So it is protein-free urine on 3 consecutive days within 7 days. What is relapse? It is protein positive urine on 3 consecutive days within 1 week with edema. And what is frequent relapse? It is steroid sensitive nephrotic syndrome with 2 or more relapses in 6 months or more than 3 in 1 year. What is steroid dependent? Who relapses while steroid is being tapered. The moment you taper the steroid, they are again having the relapse. Initial non-responder, no response during first 8 weeks of therapy. And late is initial steroid responder who fails to respond to 4-week treatment in relapse. These are the definitions which can be useful. Thank you.